So we're going to start on page 44 on the zakat of the livestock. And Zakaria was just mentioning that this book was printed free of charge by a brother at Kinko's. And so he said to just make dua for the brother. نبدأ في كل 5.
انتهى زكاة الأنعام. نعم طيب. في كل 5 جمال شذعة. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وصحبه ومن في كل 5 جمال شذعة في الغنم بنت المخاض مقنعة في 25 وابنة اللبون في 6 مع 30 تكون. إذا كانت الإبل 5 تجب فيها شذعة من الغنم والتاء فيه للوحدة لا للتانيث، يعني ذكرنا وأنثى على المشهور. ذات سنة بنت المخاض مقنعة في 25. إذا بلغت الإبل 25 فطيمة المخاض وما كان قبل ذلك في كل 5 شذعة. وابنة اللبون في 6 مع 30 تكون. إذا كانت الإبل 36 تطاع فيها بنت لبون وهي بنت 2 ودخلت في 3، كما أن بنت المخاض بنت 1 ودخلت في 2.
So for every 5 camels, 1 yearling from either sheep or goat is due. So if a person has 5 camels, they would give out 1 year-old sheep or goat, and that could be either a male or a female. But a she-camel in her 2nd year is due and suffices when the number of camels reaches 25. So for the first 5 and every 5 until it gets to 25, they would be giving it 1 yearling for every 5, and then once the number reaches 25, they would give a she-camel in her 2nd year. And then a she-camel that has completed 2 years and entered into her 3rd year, Ibn Labun, is due when the camels has reached 36. So from 25 to 36, he only gives out that one, the 2-year-old camel, and then he'll give out the 2-year, the Ibn Labun, once the number reaches 36.
46 حقة كفت شذعة 61 وفن. إذا كانت الإبل 46 تعطى فيها حقة شذعة 61. إذا بلغت 61 تعطى فيها شذعة. الحقة ذات 3 سنين ودخلت في 4، والشذعة ذات 4 سنين ودخلت في 5. بنت لبون 76. بنت لبون 76. إذا بلغت الإبل 76 أعطيت فيها بنت لبون، كلتاهما دخلت في السنة 3، يعني بنت 2 ودخلت في 3. حقتان 91. إذا كانت الإبل 91 أعطى فيها حقتان كل منهما ذات 3 سنين ودخلت في 4.
Then when the number of camels reaches 46, a she-camel that has entered her 4th year, meaning she has completed 3 full years and now has entered into her 4th year, a hiqqah suffices. At 61, a she-camel that has entered into her 5th year, she has completed 4 years and entered into her 5th year, jada'a fulfills the obligation.
طيب ومع 3 بنات لبون. طيب.
And then on page 45 at 76, 2 she-camels that have entered their 3rd year are given to fulfill the obligation. At 91, 2 she-camels that have entered their 4th year, hiqqah, are required.
نعم. ومع 3 بنات 91 إذا جعلت عليها 30 تكون 121. 3 أي بنات لبون أخو حقتين بافتيات. إذا كان في الإبل بنات اللبون والحقات في المخير الساعي أو الفقير إن أحب أن يأخذ 3 بنات لبون أو حقتين، وإذا لم يكن إلا أحدهما تعين بانفراده.
And then adding 30 to 91, we get 121. So once he has 121 camels, at which point, or the 2 she-camels that have entered their 4th year are required when we get to once we get to At 91, 2 she-camels are required. Then when you add 30 to 91, which is 121, when he has 121 camels, either 3 she-camels that have entered their 3rd year or 2 she-camels that have entered their 4th year are given based upon the unquestioned decision of a valid government zakat collector. So he could either give, that decision would be up to the zakat collector to give either 3 she-camels that have entered their 3rd year, they have completed 2 years and entered their 3rd year, or 2 she-camels that have entered their 4th year after completing 3 full years. And he said this is if he has both of them. Whereas if he only has, say he only has 3 she-camels that have entered their 3rd year, that's what he gives out. So the situation where the choice would be to the government zakat collector is if he has both of those categories. If he only has one of the categories, that's what he gives out.
الثلاثين 300 في كل 50 كمالا حقته وكل 40 بنت للبون وهكذا ما زاد أمره يهون. إذا كانت الإبل 130 فحينئذ يسهل تخريج الزكاة منها. كل 40 حقة في كل 50 حقة وفي كل 40 بنت لبون وهكذا ما زاد أمرها هكذا ما ارتفع أمرها توزع على الخمسينات والأربعينات.
So that last section was 121 camels to 129. He would choose either between the 3 3-year-olds or the 2 4-year-olds. Until the number reaches 130 camels, then for every 50 camels, 1 she-camel that has entered her 4th year, or for every 40 camels, a she-camel that has entered her 3rd year, bint al-labun, likewise with any increase of numbers, which is quite simple to work out. So once the number reaches 130, then he either gives those for 50 or in increments of 50 and 30. So any from 130, 140, 150, 160, you can break it down into 40s and 50s. And then for every 40, you would give the she-camel, the bint al-labun, and then for every 50, you would give the hiqqa, the one that has completed her 4th year. So like 130, you have 40 and 40 and 50. 40 and 40 makes 80, and then 50. So you would give out 2 she-camels that have entered their 4th year, and then, 2 she-camels that have entered their 3rd year, because you have 2 multiples of 40, and then 150. So that would be 1 she-camel that has entered their 4th year. And then when you get 140, you have 50, 50, and then 40. And then 150, you have 3 50s. And then 160, you have 4 40s.
عشر تبيع في 30 بقر مسنة في 40 تستطاع. البقر قبل 30 لا زكاة فيه، فإذا بلغ 30 أعطي منه عجل تبيع من 2 سمي التبيع تبيعا لأنه صار يتبع أمه ولأن قرنيه تبع أذنيه. مسنة في 40 تستطر. إذا كانت البقر بلغت 40 تقطع منها مسنة ذات 3 سنين ودخلت في 4، كما أن تبيع دخل في 3. وهكذا ما ارتفعت البقر في كل 40 مسنة وفي كل 30 عجل تبيع.
So the next is the zakat of cows. For every 30 cows, and he says before a person has 30 cows, there's no zakat. Once it reaches 30 cows, 1 calf that has completed 2 years, which is called in Arabic a tabi'. And he says there's a difference of opinion why it's called tabi', because that word comes from, like, it means the one that follows. So one says that it's now following its mother, it can now go out with the herd. The other says because its horns are now, so to speak, following the ears. It's growing out and getting close to the ears, so it's following the ears. So that the tabi', the 2-year-old camel, the 2-year-old calf, is given once he has 30 cows. A cow that has completed 3 years is decreed for every 40 cows. So if he has 40 cows, then he would give out a calf or a cow that has completed 3 years. And then now he would work out however many number of cows he has, he works it out into multiples of 30 and 40 and then gives out based on that.
ثم الغنم شاة ل40 أخرى تضم في 21 يتلو و100 ومع 80 3 مجزئة. طيب الغنم لا زكاة فيها قبل 40، فإذا بلغت 40 أخذت منها شاة ذكر أو أنثى ذات سنة تضم لها أخرى إذا بلغت الغنم 121، ومع 8 إذا بلغت الغنم 201، يعني انضمت 8 إلى 121 نعطوا 3 شياه.
As for sheep and goats, there is no zakat on them until their number reaches 40, and then a male or female yearling from either type is due. Should the number reach 121, add this to another. So if he has less than 40 sheep or goats, then there's no zakat. Once it gets to 40, he would give out one male or female yearling, and he would only give out one until he reaches 121. So from 40 to 120, he just gives out one sheep. At 121, he would give 2. And so 21 followed by 100, making it 2 yearlings, and with 80 more at 201, then 3 yearlings suffice.
وأربعا خذ من 140 شاة لكل 100 ترفع. إذا كانت الغنم 400 نأخذ من كل 100 شاة إن ترفع، ما زاد على ذلك في كل 100 شاة 500 5 شياه 600 6 شياه. وحول الأرباح ونسل كالأصول. حول الأرباح ربح المال كأصله، من كانت عنده دراهم يصرفها وربحت في خلال السنة، فلما جاء الحول فإذا هي زائدة يزكي تلك الزيادة وهي الربح بزكاة الأصل. وكذلك نسول الحيوانات فهي كأصولها، ولو ولدت قبل الحول بيوم واحد كانت عنده 5 من الإبل وولدت قبل الحول بيوم ويومين 5 أخرى فيعطي 2. إذا كانت عنده بعض الغنم فولدت وبلغت مثلا ما يبلغها درجة الثانية. والطالي لا عما يزكى أن يحول.
And take 4 yearlings from 400, and then a yearling for every 100 henceforth. So from 201 to 400, like from 201 to 399, he's only going to give out 3 sheep or 3 goats. Once he has 400, then he gives out 4. And then now he goes in increments of 100. So if he has 500 sheep, he would give out 5. 600, he would give out 6, and so forth. The lunar year for monetary profits or for additional offspring is the same as the completion of the lunar year of the origins, i.e. the prophet's seed, capital, and the mother's offspring. So for example, if a person has a certain amount of money that he's using to buy and sell, he's using it in business, and now he's going to give zakat on the end, he's going to all the profit that he produced from that capital, he's going to pay zakat based on the capital's year. So even though he might not make his profit until 2 or 3 days before the year is up on the capital, he would consider that part of the capital and then pay zakat when the year is up. So right now, if he starts with say $10,000 and doesn't make any profit until 2 days before this day next year, he pays zakat on all of that, puts it back to the 10,000, and then pays it on the original, on the capital's lunar year. And the same goes for animals. If he has sheep or goats, or if he has cows, and the mothers are about to have 1 year have been complete upon them, and then they give birth just a few days before the year's up, they would be considered part of the original year of the mother. So they would be counted. As for what is newly purchased or given as a gift, one waits until a lunar year has passed, but not when added to what is nisab, in which case zakat is owed on all of it. So if something is, he said, if something is monetary profits or the offspring of the animal, it goes to the lunar year, it goes to the hawl of the origin. Whereas if he bought something new, as soon as he buys it, that's when the year starts. So say he has he buys 30 cows today, and he already had 30 cows. He pays 30 cows that zakat on their own year, and now he keeps track of this new amount of cows and pays zakat after a year. Or if he has a gift, once he gets the gift, then he pays zakat after a year. What's that? like if, say, for example, you have $10,000 in your business, and now you're about to have completed a year, and now you have another $10,000 in profit that you've made up over the year. That profit has not had a whole year pass on it, but you're going to pay zakat once the year passes on that original 10,000. So say at the end, now you have 10,000 that's going to be with the original 10,000, and then somebody comes and gives you a gift 2 days before the zakat on the original 10,000 is owed. Gives you a gift of 5,000. You don't say, well, I'm going to put this 5,000 with that 20,000, pay zakat at the same time. No, you pay that 20,000 on its own year, and then this 5 you start a new track for it.
الطاري الأعمال يزكى أن يحول قرأته.
لا.
والطاري الأشياء الفوائد إذا طرأت على ما فيه زكاة أي تضم لها، كما كان له مثلا 40 من الغنم، ولو قبل الحول بيوم واحد اشترى مثلا شيئا آخر حتى بلغت 121 يعطي شاتين. فلو كان شيء لا يزكى من كانت عنده 30 وقبل الحول اشترى 10 أخرى، فذلك يضم الأولى للثانية ويستقبل حولا جديدا لا عما يزكى إن يحو. فالفوائد إذا تجددت على الحيوانات
نعم،
فهذه تزكى تضم لها إذا كان قبلها ما يزكى، كما كانت عنده 40 أو 30 من الغنم، 40 أو 30 من البقر، فهذا يضمها ولو قبل الحول بيوم واحد. فإذا كان لا يزكى وحصل على فائدة قبل الحول فلا يضمها له، بل يستقبل بالجميع حولا جديدا.
So if one waits until a lunar year has passed, but not when added to what is nisab, in which case zakat is owed on all of it. كأنه إذا عنده مثل نصاب.
الطاري يعني الفائدة التي طرأت.
نعم، لأنه هون في الإنجليزي ما هون واضح، كأنه هون إذا كان عنده يعني نصاب من الغنم.
الطاري يزكى إن يحول لا عما لا يزكى. الطاري يضم لما كان يزكى لا إذا مثلا تجدد على ما لا يزكى من الأشياء التي لم تبلغ الزكاة. والطاري يزكى مع الأول إن يحول إذا كان الأول فيه زكاة.
يستقبل به حوجته.
لا يضم له ويزكى عند الحول الأول إذا كان المال الأول فيه زكاة.
نعم.
فهمت؟ إذا كانت هذا الغنم أو هذا البقر فيه زكاة، فهذا يضم له ويزكى عند حول الأول.
إذا
اشتراها أو أعطيت له الفائدة، وضمت الفائدة له قبل حوله بيوم لا لأقل. لا عما لا يزكى، هذا نص خليل. لا عما لا يزكى، لا إذا كان لا يزكى لا لأقل، لا إذا كان أقل من النصاب فلا يضم، بل يضم الأول للثاني ونستقبل حولا جديدة. والثاني والطاري يعني الفائدة الطارئة تضم للأول ويزكى عند تمام الحول إذا كان ذلك يزكى، إذا كان ذلك الأول يزكى. لا عما لا يزكى، لا إذا كان لا يزكى فلا يضم الثاني للأول، بل الأول يضم للثاني ويستقبل بهما حول جديد. إذا كان غير واضح شوي تشطب عليه فقط، تشعل عليه تشطيب.
So if a person either has nisab, has a zakatable amount, whether it's in money or in animals or whatever it may be, he either has a zakatable amount and he has a year that he's paying on it, or he doesn't. If he does, like saying that example that I gave, he had $10,000 and then he had another 10,000, then he got a gift as 5,000. He puts that 5,000 with the 25,000.
لا هذا ليس في زكاة الدنانير ولا الدراهم، هذا في الأنعام. نعم. لأن في الدراهم والدنانير لا تضم الفائدة. نعم. هذا في الأنعام هو الذي يضم، وأما في الدراهم والدنانير لا تضم الفائدة. واستقبل بفائدة تشددت لا عن ماله.
So if it's wealth, like say it's gold, silver, or what's used in its stead, if he gets it as a gift, or if he inherits it, or whatever it is, he doesn't get it through his business, he starts a new year on that. So like in that example, he has 20,000 and 20,000. If somebody gives him, Dawood, you want to fix it? If he gets a gift of 5,000, then he would start a new year on it. But if it's animals, say he has 30 cows that he's paying zakat on, so that's a zakatable amount. Somebody gives him, and their year is about to be up in say a week, and today somebody gives him a gift of 5 animals. We don't say, well, these 5 animals, we're going to put them on a new year. We're going to put these along with the origin. So in 1 week, he's going to pay zakat on 35 cows. Which there's no, it's going to be the same. But say he gives him 10 cows, so then it's going to make it 40. Is that clear on that one? If he has less than nisab, as far as the animals, then he starts from, like say he has 25 cows, and so that's less than nisab. And somebody now gives him 5 cows, and he's had these 25 cows for a year. But it was less than or it's about to be a year, and now he gets 5 more, and so he has 30. We don't say, well, in a week it's going to be a year since he's had these 25 cows, and now he has 30 cows. That's a zakatable amount. He's going to pay. He starts right when he gets those extra 5 cows, gets up to nisab. Then he starts counting from that day and waits for another lunar year to pass. No, the gold or the silver. If it's already at nisab and he gets something new, that something new goes on its own yearly scale. And if it's less than nisab, then once he gets that thing new and now it brings it up to nisab, now that everything's put together and it starts a new year. As far as the gold or silver? Yeah, everything's added. If it's less than nisab, everything's added together, and then it starts a new year. And if it was already at nisab, then any new addition to his wealth, if it was specifically from things such as gift, or he bought it, or it was inheritance, then he starts a new year.
نجي. ولا يزكى وقص من النعم كذاك ما دون النصاب وليعم. طيب، قال إن شيء وقص من النعم يعني هو ما بين النصابين، ما بين 30 إلى 40 في البقر، وما بين 40 إلى 121 في الغنم، وما بين 5 إلى 10 في الإبل. هذا يزكى وقص من النعم، بخلاف الثمار والعين، فعندما تبلغ الزكاة أوقاصها تزكى. كذلك ما دون النصاب، كذلك شيء دون النصاب لا يزكى، سواء كان من العين أو من الماشية أو من الحبوب، شيء لم يبلغ النصاب. وليعم أي هذا الحكم عام في كل ما نقص عن النصاب، ولا يخص بنوع دون نوع، بل الوقص الذي زاد على النصاب ولم يبلغ الحد الثاني من النصاب ذاك خاص بالأنعام، وأما ما دون النصاب فهو عام في الأنواع كلها. وعسل فاكهة كذلك لا يزكى العسل، ولا تزكى الفاكهة، ولا يزكى الخضر، إذ هي في الحبوب المقتاتة مما يدخر، أي يصلح للادخار زمانا مثلا يصلح يقال له عادة الادخار.
No zakat is taken for an intermediary amount waqs of livestock. So if a person, the waqs is like say we said it was 30 cows, and then the next level is 40 cows. So say he has 35 cows. Those 5 cows, there's no zakat on them. Or we said 5 camels is it's increments of 5 until it reaches 25. So say he has 13. He's going to pay zakat on 10, and those extra 3, that's a waqas. So there's no zakat on them. Likewise, none is due for livestock that has not reached the nisab amount. So 25 cows or 20 cows, anything less than 30, anything less than 40 goats, or anything less than 5 camels, that's less than the nisab, so there's no zakat owed on that. And this is a general ruling that includes other wealth that has not reached nisab. So the same goes for fruits and grains, and also for gold, silver, and the like. If it's less than nisab, there's no zakat, and if it's in between, well, if it's less than nisab, then there's no zakat. And now page 47. And then also likewise there's no zakat on honey or fruits, including vegetables, since it is only owed on dried staples from storable goods. So zakat is only taken from dried goods such as beans and rice and wheat and barley, things that can be dried and they're staples. So there's no zakat on the honey, fruits or vegetables.
ويحصل النصاب من صنفين كذهب وفضة من عين. يحصل النصاب من صنفين، الجنس واحد والأصناف متفرقة، وذلك كالذهب والفضة. فمن كانت عنده 10 دنانير و100 درهم فيضم الجميع ويخرج ربع العشر. وكالضأن للمعز، من كانت عنده 20 من الضأن و20 من المعز فيضم الجميع ويخرج شاة. بخت للعراب كذلك الإبل البخت والإبل العراب، الإبل معهودة في بلاد العرب كذلك إذا كان عنده 5 من هذه و15 من هذه والباقي إلى 36 من الأخرى يضم الجميع، أو عنده 2 من البخت و3 من العراب يضم الجميع ويعطي شاة. وبقر إلى الجوامس كذلك البقر الحمر إلى الجوامس، إن كانت عنده 15 من الجوامس و15 من البقر الحمر يعطي مثلا أيضا عجلا تبعا. كذلك القمح للشعير أو للسلت، كانت عنده 5 أسواق، 2 منها من القمح و2 من الشعير و1 منها من السلت فيضم الجميع ويزكي. كذلك القطاني تضم القطاني أيضا أنواعها مثلا وهي 7، والزبيب أنواعه كذلك الثمار أحمره وأصفره.
Also, an nisab amount can be reached by joining 2 categories. For instance, gold and silver from monetary wealth can be added together to reach nisab. So we said for the gold, it was 20 dinars and 200 dirhams. So say he has 10 dinars and 100 dirhams. Half of the gold nisab and half of the silver, he can put them together to reach nisab. Or sheep can be added to goats. So say he has 20 sheep and 20 goats, he puts them together and pays zakat on them all together. And 1 humped camels can be put together with the 2 humped camels. Say he has 3, he put them together until he reaches nisab. And the same thing with cows and buffalo. And the buffalo here are the water buffalo, not the buffalo that's known in North America, the bison.
Isaac.
So the cows and the water buffalo can be put together to reach nisab. Their combination in these cases occur because they are different species from the same genus. Wheat is added to barley, and huskless wheat, sult, are all joined together to make one. So since the nisab for those type of grains is 5 awsuq, say he has 2 of wheat and 2 of barley and 1 of sult, he puts them all together and then he pays zakat on all of them. And then also all of the 7 qatani, the 7 types of beans, which are the black-eyed peas, green peas, and I can't remember the names of them in English, all of them. And all types of raisins and dates are considered one category. So also he would put raisins together with dates. If he doesn't have enough of nisab just of dates or just of raisins, he would put them together. And then even amongst the dates, if he has different types of dates, he would put them together. If he has different types of raisins, golden raisins and black raisins and so forth, he puts them all together. Yes, he has to do that, so he'll pay zakat on them respectively.
مصرفها الفقير والمسكين غاز وعتق عامل مدين. هذه مصارف الزكاة. مصرفها ما ورد في القرآن العظيم، إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. الفقير وهو الذي ليس عنده ما يكفيه سنة، والمسكين وهو الذي سكنت يده عن التصرف ما عنده شيء. الغازي المجاهد في سبيل الله. وعتق رقبة مؤمنة، واحد عنده مال يريد أن يخرجه بالزكاة فيشتري رقبة ويعتقها بمقابلها من الزكاة. جيد. عامل كذلك، العامل عليها وهم السعاة، الساعي يمشي يجمع الزكاة من الناس ويأتي بها للسلطان، كذلك يعطى له حقه منها. مدين، واحد مثلا عليه ديون تدين بها في مباح لا في حرام، يقضى منه دينه. يقضى منها دينه مؤلف القلب، واحد مثلا قريب عهد بالإسلام أو هو قريب من الإسلام على تأويلين، قريب عهد بالإسلام وما زال ضعيفا نعطوه منها لأجل أن يتقوى ولو كان غنيا لأنه معطوه لأهل التأليف، وواحد هو نريد أن يدخل الإسلام قريب منه على التأويل الآخر. ومحتاج كذلك، محتاج غريب هو ابن السبيل، واحد ولو كان غنيا ببلده لكنه هنا تقطعت به الأسباب وما عنده ما يوصله إلى بلده، ونعطوه منها ما يوصله إلى بلده، ولكنه لو جلس ننزع منه ما أعطيناه من الزكاة. حرار إسلام لازم الفقير، وهذه يكون أحرار ولم يقبل مريب، لم يقبل مشكوك فيه، واحد مثلا رأينا عليه ربا قال إنه فقير ولكن ظواهره لا تقتضي ذلك، فما نقبل منه أنه فقير إلا بعد ثبوت ذلك.
The recipients of zakat that were mentioned in the Quran, Surah At-Tawbah, the recipients of zakat are the poor, which in Arabic is the faqir, and the faqir is defined as one who does not have enough wealth to support himself for one complete year. And then the miskin, here translated as indigent, and that's the person who doesn't have anything, he doesn't have even enough to go through this day. Also the soldier, the ghaz, and he can take from the zakat even if he has wealth, because he's now taking zakat not because he's poor, because he's a miskin, but because he's a soldier. Also, it's for freeing bonds persons. It's also for the zakat workers, the collectors, the guards, or the distributors. It pays their salaries. It also pays a debtor whose debt was accrued by permissible means. So if he has debts and he wasn't taking debts for example, to keep up his gambling habit or to buy liquor or whatever it might be, if he was taking debts by permissible means or for permissible things, then his debts can be cleared through zakah. Also, one recently converted to bind the heart to Islam. So the mu'allif al-qalb here, if a person has been recently converted to Islam, we can give him from the zakat, even if he's rich, so as to make his heart firmer in Islam. And the other opinion is that it's a person that hasn't recently converted. He hasn't converted yet, but he's very close to Islam, and so we would give him zakat to bring him closer to Islam. So two opinions, one saying that he's a person that's close to Islam but has not converted yet, the other saying that he's a person that's recently converted. Also a stranger in need, i.e. a needy traveler, and what this means is a person has traveled to a land and now he doesn't have the means to get back to his own land. And he may be rich in his original land, but here he does not have the means to get back, and he doesn't have the means to say borrow the money and then have it and send it back to them, or send to his family to send for money. So if he's in need, then we can give him from the zakat. But if he takes the zakat and doesn't travel back home, just hangs around, then we take the zakat back. Also, all of these categories, all of these 8 categories, they must be free and Muslims. One who raises doubts as to his claim is not accepted unless he can substantiate his truthfulness. So if a person comes and says he is poor, he's a faqir, but we see that the way he dresses and the way he, everything about him, his house and so forth, it doesn't look like he really is a faqir, he has to prove it before he can take from the zakah. The people that are going out, they're fighting jihad. They can take from zakat to use to buy weapons, to buy animals, to ride on horses and so forth. And then also just the food that they're going to, because sometimes originally in the jihad, sometimes they go out, they're not paid soldiers by the government. So they're going out, if they have their own wealth, they can buy weapons, they can buy animals and so forth. It's like they're doing it for the sake of Allah. They're not salaried soldiers. So if a person doesn't have that, well, or even if he does, but just to support them because they're not being, there's no system to pay them, they can take from the zakat.
And then for the debtor, just as long as his debt isn't around?
Correct. And also that he didn't take, like, he knows that the zakat can be paid off, zakat can pay off debts, and so he starts taking debts and with his intention that he's going to pay it off with zakat. Well, once they get it, it's their wealth. And also, if a person, he could actually say somebody's like, he's poor and he's a soldier. So he could take zakat for being a poor person, and then he can also take as being a soldier.
So once they get it, then we can use it to pay off
Yeah, oh, to pay it off haram debt?
like the new convert. If they got the zakat because they were new convert, but they're using it to pay off the debt.
قالت إذا واحد مثلا تحمل الدين بشيء حرام فما يستطيع أن يقبل الزكاة من لأنه مدين، ولكن في نفس الوقت هو فقير، فهي يأخذ الزكاة لأنه فقير.
نعم ضروري
لأنه صارت ماله.
نعم يأخذها لفقره، لكن ما يمكن يصرفها في تلك الديون.
ما يصرف في تلك الديون.
لا لنفقاته وأشياء.
نعم. So if he did accrue debt through haram means, then if he was poor and he was taking zakat because he was poor, the only thing he could use that zakat for is for his livelihood, his sustenance. He couldn't pay off those haram debts with the zakat that he took as a poor person. وإذا كانت مثلا مؤلفة القلب، كيف الواحد داخل الإسلام من قريب وعنده ديون كثيرة من قبل الإسلام، يعني أخذها من الحرام، فالآن يعني يأخذ الزكاة لأنه قريب، يعني مؤلفة القلب، ولكن عنده ديون كثيرة لأنه ما كان يعرف الشريعة.
إذا كانت ديون حرامية لا تلزمه قع.
نعم.
كانت ديون ربوية أو ديون من خمور أو من هاي لا تنعقد بها البيوع.
وإذا خاف مثلا الضرر من الحكومة، إذا ما يقضي تلك الديون.
هاي هي اللي بتعطى له لأجل الصرف. مثلا إذا كان يعرف أنه لو أنه ما أعطوها له ما يتألف الإسلام وما يرجع له، هي معطية للتأليف الإسلام سواء كان أي ما كان.
وإذا ما كان إذا كان يأخذ على أنه مؤلفة القلب وعنده ديون، ولكن إذا قلنا أنه ما تستطيع أن تصرفه في هذا
يكون ذاك يضعف الإسلام.
ما يضعفه.
لا إذا كان ضعف الإسلام ذاك واضح.
نعم.
لأنه معطي لتأليف القلب لا لأجل صرف الزكاة.
If a person took a debt, say for example interest, he took a loan with interest. All that interest, technically by Sharia, he doesn't owe it. So so if somebody say he becomes Muslim and he has all this debt, and that it has interest on it, and we gave him money because he's recently converted to Islam, we can tell him. If you take this as a recently converted Muslim, you can't use even though that doesn't.
نحن ما يلزمنا نبحث عنه قاعد نعطيه فقط مثلا نعطيه ذاك، لكن لو وجدناه مثلا سيصرفه في تلك الأمور إذا كان ذاك لا يضعف، هو تأليف والمراد به تأليف القلب.
So he said, to begin with, he said we don't have to really, if a person's converted to Islam recently, we just give him that money if he's since he's part of this category, and we don't have to ask him, do you have debts or anything. But if he comes and he asks us if he has these debts, we say that if we fear that if we tell him, look, you can't pay off those debts through this, like say he had gambling. If we tell him you can't pay off your gambling debts with this money, that's going to weaken his Islam, then we can leave it alone, because that's part of strengthening his Islam. We're giving this money to strengthen his Islam. But if we know that it's not going to affect him, we say, look, you cannot use this money to pay off those debts. So that's if it's something like gambling or some other haram means. Whereas if it's something like say interest, he doesn't. That's not a debt. وفإذا كان يأخذ كأنه عن قمار يلزمه يأخذ عن قمار.
قمار كيف؟
يعني القمار
لا يلزمه، هو القمار لا يلزم فيه.
فالدين الحرام كيف تعرف؟
الدين الحرام كالقمار، الدين الحرام كيتدين ما هو في محله ما يحتاج إليه، هذا هو دين ما يحتاج إليه في نفقة لازمة عليه تسفيه، هذا دين حرام.
نعم.
ما تعطى في الزكاة.
تسلف من وحدين مثلا.
تسلف لأجل مثلا أن يتعامل لأجل يأكل في شيء لا ضروريات، ما في ضروريات، هذا ديون هاي لا تجوز. وما يجوز لشخص يتدين إلا عن حاجة، ولأجل أمور مثلا سيصرفها في شيء. واحد يريد أن يتشهى ويزيد يزيد الأمور التي تلزم، هذا يتدين فيه.
So say he borrowed a lot of money to keep up his gambling habits. So that's a dain that he accrued through something haram. So he would have to go back and pay off those people that he took the money from, but if he can't use it, he can't take the zakat money to pay that off. Unless he's the recently converted, and we fear that if we tell him that, it's going to weaken his Islam, then we just leave him alone. We give him that money and he can pay it off if he wants to.
فصل زكاة الفطر صاع وتجب عن مسلم ومن برزقه طلب من مسلم بجل عيش القوم لتغني حرا مسلما في اليوم. زكاة الفطر واجبة بالسنة بالحديث لا بالقرآن، ورضها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. زكاة الفطر صاع، هي صاع وهو 4 أمداد بمده صلى الله عليه وسلم. وتجب عن مسلم، تجب عن مسلم بنفسه ومن برزقه طلب من تلزمه نفقته من زوجة وأولاد وعبيد ووالدين إذا كانوا محتاجين من مسلم. هذا إذا كان مسلما. أما إذا كان المذكور ليس مسلما فلا يلزمه أن يزكي عنه زكاة الفطر. بشل عيش القوم في رمضان ما كانوا يقتاتونه في رمضان أكثرهم، لتغني حرا مسلما تعطى للحر المسلم الفقير أو المسكين مسكين الزكاة لتغني في ذلك اليوم.
The next section is the section of Zakat Al-Fitr, which was made incumbent not through the Quran. The other zakat of wealth and of animals and of the other things was made incumbent. It was an obligation through the Quran. The section on the Zakat Al-Fitr was made an obligation through the Sunnah. So there was no ayah specifically mentioned about this, but the Prophet ﷺ ordered that the Muslims pay out the Zakat Al-Fitr, which is given right at the end of Ramadan or after Ramadan. So zakat at the end of the fast of Ramadan is 1 sa', which is equal to about 2.03 liters of food, and it has to be from the thing that was most consumed during Ramadan. So if their staple was wheat during Ramadan, they would have to give it out from wheat. If their staple was whatever it may be, they have to give it. They can't give it. Say their staple was wheat, and they give it out from rice. They have to give it out from the dominant staple of that land in Ramadan. It is binding upon every Muslim and all of his dependents among the Muslims in his household, including infants and servants. So for every able-bodied male, he has to give it out for himself, 1 sa', and then also he has to give it out for all his dependents. So for his wife, for his children, for his the bondspeople that he owns, and for his parents, if they're not able to support themselves and he's supporting them, then these are his dependents, and so he's going to give out 1 sa' for every member.
كتاب الصيام. صيام شهر رمضان وجب في رجب شعبان صوم ندب.
And then so on the top of page 49, also it is taken from the dominant staple of the community in order to relieve a Muslim from the need of asking others on that day of Eid. So that dominant staple, what they were eating during Ramadan.
صيام شهر رمضان وجب في رجب شعبان صوم ندب. صيام شهر رمضان وجب إجماعا وسنة وكتابا. رمضان وجب في رجب شعبان الصوم الندب. رجب شهر رجب وشهر شعبان كل منهما يندب صومه للقادر على ذلك إذا كان لا يضعف عن الصوم في رمضان. كتسع حجة كذلك الأيام 9 من الحجة. وأحرى اليوم الآخر وهو يوم عرفة لغير الحاج. كذا المحرم وكذلك شهر محرم مندوب صومه كلا. وأحرى العاشر وهو يوم عيد عاشوراء.
The next section is the Kitab al-Siyam, the book of fasting. Fasting the month of Ramadan is an obligation, and this is based on taken from the Quran, from the Sunnah, and the consensus of the Ummah. In Rajab and Sha'ban, fasting is recommended. In the 2 months before Ramadan, fasting during those 2 months is considered mandub, or recommended. Also recommended is fasting during the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, so the month of Hajj, especially the last day, meaning the day of Arafah. So the 9 days, especially the 9th day, for those not performing Hajj. Whereas for those performing Hajj, they should not fast because they need strength to perform the rites of that day of Arafah. Also, it is recommended to fast in the month of Muharram, especially the 10th day, which is Ashura, the day of festivities of the 10th of Muharram. Yes.
ويثبت الشهر برؤية الهلال. يثبت الشهر برؤية الهلال أو ب30 قبيلا في كما يثبت الشهر برؤية الهلال إذا رآه عدلان، والعدل هو من يجتنب الكبائر ويتقي في الأغلب الصغائر. العدل حر مسلم بالغ بلا فسق لا يدخن ولا يحلق لحيته ولا يكذب ولا يغتاب الناس ولا يفعل معاصي الكبيرة ولا يفعل الصغيرة على الدوام، يفعلها نادرا. من يجتنب الكبائر ويتقي في الأغلب الصغائر.
The month of Ramadan, the Shahr of Ramadan is confirmed by sighting the new moon or by the completion of 30 days of the previous lunar month, which is Sha'ban. So if it's the 29th, we have 29 days of Sha'ban has been completed, we go out on that night and we look for the new moon. If we don't see the moon, then we complete 30 days of Sha'ban and then we begin it. But the sighting has to be done by at least 2 just witnesses. By two just witnesses, or by a group large enough, a large group. And that's the definition of the large group is a group large enough to where it would be impossible for them to have got together to lie about the sighting of the moon. So it's either by 2 just witnesses or by a large group, and the large group could be even what are not considered just Muslims, or other people that aren't considered the adils, women, children, so forth. And the adil, he said, has to be a male and he has to be an adult. And the definition of the adil is the one that leaves the enormities. He does not perform the enormities, commit the enormities. And also usually he leaves the lesser sins. And he said examples of the enormities, like if he steals or backbites, or if he smokes, or if he shaves his beard and so forth.
وفرض الصيام نية بليله وترك وطئ شربه وأكله. فرض الصيام نية بليله، كل صوم سواء كان فرضا أو نفلا لا يصح إلا بالنية ليلا، أي قبل انصداع الفجر. وترك وطئ شربه وأكله كذلك في جميع النهار، يلزمه أن يترك الوطأ والشرب والأكل. والقيء تقي مع إيصال شيء للمعاد، كذلك لا يصل شيء لمعدته سواء كان من فم أو من أذن أو عين أو أنف وقت طلوع فجره، هذا من وقت طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. والعقل في أوله شرط الوجوب، شرط وجوب الصيام أن يعقل أوله أي أول النهار، فلو كان طلع الفجر وهو غائب العقل يلزمه صوم ذلك اليوم ولا يصح منه.
The obligations of fasting, on page 50, the obligations of fasting are a firm intention made the night before. So the person has to make an intention the night before the fast to fast this next day. At the beginning of Ramadan, he can make one intention that would be suffice for the entire month. And then after that, after the first night, it becomes recommended every night to make present the intention that he's going to fast the next day. So the fast has to have an intention the night before. Also abstaining from sexual relations and from eating and drinking during the day. Also from vomiting, meaning that he intentionally vomits, or by anything reaching the stomach by way of the ear, the eye, or the nose. The prescribed time of the fast is from dawn until from the light of the true dawn until the completion of the sunset. Also, having sanity at the beginning of the fast is a condition of its obligation. So at the beginning of the fast, which is right at dawn, he has to have sanity. He may be asleep, but the point is that he actually has a sanity. So if he, say, for whatever reason, does not have a sanity, and he gets up at, say, 10 o'clock after it's already been started, then it's not incumbent for him to fast. كذلك مثلا ما كانت العقل موجود في أوله مثل ما يجب القضاء.
يجب القضاء وليقضي فاقده. وليقضي فاقد العقل ذلك اليوم يقضيه مثلا. والحيض منع صوما وتقضي الفرض إن به ارتفع. الحيض كذلك منع الصوم، لا يصح من الحائض صوم ولا يجب عليها، وتقضي الفرض، تقضي الصوم الفرض إذا ارتفع عنها الصوم، ارتفع عنها الحيض يجب عليها أن تقضي الفرض، أما النوافل فلا تقضيها. ويكره اللبس، يكره للرجل أن يلمس زوجته أو يتفكر في محاسنها سلما دأبا من المذي، إذا كان يعرف أنه دائما عندما يلمسها أو يتفكر في محاسنها لا يأتيه مذي من ذلك، سيكون سليما منه. وإلا بأن اعتاد أن يخرج منه المذي عندما يلامسها ويتفكر ذلك، فذلك حرام.
If one loses one's sanity, then he makes up the number of days he missed. So during that time, it wasn't sound for him to perform the fast. So once he regains his sanity, then he makes up the days that he missed. Also, menstruation prevents a woman from fasting. It's haram for her to fast while she's menstruating during that time. And she should make up any obligatory fasts once it stops. So the prayers during that time, she does not perform them and she does not have to make them up. The fast, she does not have to perform it, but once the menstruation is over, she makes those fasts up, or after Ramadan. On page 51, the makruhat al-siyam, the disliked acts during fast. It is disliked during fasting to touch one's spouse or to think about making love or anything that would cause, just thinking pleasurable thoughts in general. And this is if one was previously safe from lustful emission, the madhi. If one is not safe from such emission, meaning that he knows that if he touches or if he thinks about those thoughts, it's going to cause the madhi, then such things are deemed haram.
وكرهوا ذوق كقدر وهذر غالب قيء وذباب مغتفى. كره العلماء ذوق كقدر، أحد يطبخ طعام ويصنع طعام أو يصنع شراب يذوقه هل فيه الملح هذا الطعام أو هذا الشراب فيه السكر أو هل هو مثلا طعمه جيد، ويدفله بعد ذلك، هذا مكروه خوف مثلا أن يغرر بصومه. وهذا كذلك مكروه، كثرة الهذر في الصوم مع أنها مكروهة في كل وقت إلا أنها تتأكد الكراهة في وقت الصوم. غالب قيء وذباب مغتفر، وغالب القيء إذا مثلا انطلق منه قيء من غير قصد ولم يزدرد منه شيء بعد وصوله إلى فمه، هذا مغتفر ما في حرج. غبار صانع كذلك، غبار الصانع أحد يطحن الدقيق أو يصنع الأشياء بالكيل، فهو يأتيه غبار ربما يشرق منه مع التحفظ، هذا مغتفر له. وطرق كذلك، واحد ماشي في الطريق تمشي الرياح مثلا تأتي بغبار التراب فلا ضرر فيه. والسواك كذلك يجوز له أي الصائم أن يستاك بيابس، ومعنى الاغتفار هنا أنه يجوز له الاستياك. أما إذا بلع له شيء من قشور السواك فذلك يبطل صومه. يابس. إصباح جنابة كذلك، الإصباح بالجنابة جائز مع أنه خلاف الأولى، أفضل ما يصبح بجنابة.
The Maliki scholars have disliked tasting anything like a cooking pot, for instance. So during Ramadan, if a person's cooking during the daytime and they want to check see if this food is too salty or not, and they or whatever it may be, to taste the food and then to spit it out is considered makruh, for fear that the amount that they taste actually might be swallowed and break their fast. Or if it's if they're making a drink and they want to see if it's too sweet, or if it's food, if they want to check the sugar amount or whatever it is, to taste it would be considered makruh. As well as excessive talk. So if it's talk related to what they're doing for their livelihood, their dunya, or their deen, then that's fine. Anything extra that has no benefit in the deen or in the dunya, then it's considered excessive talk. And this is excessive talk, but not the haram. We're talking just about extra things that there's no benefit in it, but there's no haram. During Ramadan, it's considered makruh. Also, being overcome by vomiting is excused, or swallowing a fly accidentally are excused. So those two things, being overcome by vomiting or swallowing a fly accidentally, are excused.
What about for women who have children?
Mm-hmm.
Is that helpful? I was looking
You mean to fast?
Yeah.
No, if a woman's nursing, if she fears that by fasting it's going to harm the child, meaning she's not going to produce enough milk to feed the child, and she cannot find anybody else to nurse the child either for free or by wage, then she can break the fast. She does have to make it up. Yeah. Also forgiven are the material particles of a craftsman or dust from the road. So if, say, a person's a craftsman, like he's a carpenter, so during the day there's going to be dust, the sawdust that he's going to come in contact with, and some of that is going to be inhaled and maybe even reach the stomach. That's excused. Or say he's a baker, and he's some of the flour may be inhaled and reach his stomach. That's also excused. Where if that's not their trade, like if it's a woman, she's just making bread and she's coming into contact with flour, she has to be careful, because since that's not her trade, if it is inhaled and it reaches the stomach or reaches the throat, then that would invalidate the fast. Or dust from the road, if a person's walking in the road and there's dust that he's inhaled and it reaches his throat, then that would break his fast. Or actually, it's excused. Also, a dry toothstick is excused, and the meaning that is what he means by excused is that it's permissible to use a miswak during the entire time of the fast. But say a portion of the miswak, a part of its fiber he swallows it, then that would break his fast. Correct. As well as waking in a state of greater ritual impurity, the janaba. So it's excused if a person, say, he has a janaba and he does not do the ghusl until after the dawn has entered, that's excused. And he's saying it's excused, but it's not the optimum thing. The optimum thing is for him to have done his ghusl before dawn.
ونية تكفي لما تتابعه يجب إلا إن نفاه مانع. تكفي نية واحدة لما يجب تتابعه كصوم رمضان وكصوم كفارة الظهار. تكفي لما تتابعه يجب إلا إن نفاه مانعه، إلا إذا وجد مانع في أثنائه، كمن تخلل صومه مرض، ومن تخلل صومها حيض أو نفاس وأرادت أن ترجع إلى الصوم بقية رمضان، فهذا يجب عليها أن تجدد نية، مع أنه يندب أن يجدد الصائم كل ليلة نيته في رمضان.
An intention from the outset suffices for whatever follows. That one is obliged to fast, as in Ramadan, an expiation fast, or lihar, unless the fast is interrupted by some preventative cause such as menstruation, traveling, or sickness. In this case, the intention must be renewed in order to resume one's fast. So one intention is enough for the entire month, or for the entire amount of fast, if it's an obligation to fast them consecutively. Like in Ramadan, it's an obligation to fast it consecutively, 30 days or 29 days. So you can make one intention at the beginning of the month, and then use that for the rest of the month, and you do not have to be renewing it every night. But say something happens to interrupt that the obligation of fasting it consecutively, such as traveling. So now when he travels, it's recommended for him to fast, but it's not an obligation. So he would have to make the intention every single night. Or a person was sick, or they were menstruating, so that was interrupted. So once, if she becomes pure, the menstruation is over, when she goes back to fasting, she's going to have to make a new intention. So she can't say, well, at the beginning of the month I made an intention, and now she cannot consider that first intention is enough for these fasts that are occurring after now her menstruation is over. She has to get a new intention. وهل تكفي النية الحكمية؟ بأن يعني إذا واحد سأله ماذا ستصنع؟
واحد كان في باله إنه يصوم الحكمية.
So the important thing, if he was like the night before the fast, somebody asked, if they were to ask him, what are you going to do tomorrow? And he says, I'm going to fast. Or if he's planning out his day, he's thinking, okay, where am I going to break my fast tomorrow? So that's his intention.
ندب تعجيل لفطر رفعه كذاك تأخير سحور تبعه. ندب تعجيل الفطر بعد تحقق الليل، بعد أن يتحقق الإنسان الليل مندوب له بعد ذلك أن يعجل الفطر، رفع الصوم. كذلك تأخير السحور، كذلك مندوب أن يؤخر السحور بحيث لا يبقى إلا قدر ثلث الساعة تبعه الصوم. من أفطر الفرض قضاه وليزيد كفارة في رمضان إن عمد. من أفطر الفرض سواء كان سهوا أو عمدا قضاه، قضى ذلك اليوم الذي أفطره، وليزيد كفارة في رمضان إن عمد. إذا كان الذي أفطر فيه رمضان يجب عليه إذا كان عامدا الفطر أن يعطي كفارة لأجل أكل مثلا بفم أو شرب به أيضا، أو للمني إن تعمده ولو بفكر، ولو تفكر في محاسن المرأة حتى خرج منه المني، أو لرفض ما بني، أو رفض نيته، رفض قال أنا ما أريد الصوم اليوم، تركت الصوم رفضا للنية بلا تأول. هذا إذا كان بغير تأول قريب. ما إذا كان هناك تأول قريب فذلك لا تجب عليه الكفارة.
On page 52, the recommended acts of fasting. It is recommended to hasten the breaking of one's fast when the sun sets, which relieves one of the fast. So it's recommended once the sun sets and he's sure Maghrib is in, then it's recommended to break the fast as soon as possible. As well as delaying the pre-dawn meal, the suhoor, until close to the time that is followed by the fast. So it's also recommended for him to delay the suhoor up till until it's very close to the dawn entering, which is, he said, about 20 minutes before the dawn enters. And then the rule for the expiation for fasting, the kafara, and this is for a person that breaks his fast, and he does it without a reason. Whoever breaks an obligatory fast before sunset, let him make it up and let him add an expiation for the breaking of the sanctity of Allah's month Ramadan if he did so intentionally. So if anybody who is obliged to fast, if he doesn't fast for whatever reason, traveling, menstruation, or he intentionally does it, all those people, or for nursing, in all the cases they have to make it up. So there's no excuse to not make up that day of fasting. But added to that makeup of that day, you have to do what is called the kafara, or the expiation, and that's one of three things. The expiation is obligatory due to eating or drinking orally, as well as ejaculation, even if it was the result of fantasizing or from rejection of that upon or not. So if a person ate something or drank something orally intentionally and broke his fast, or ejaculation, even if it was from thinking, if he knew that thinking would cause that, or from rejection of that upon which the fast was built, meaning the intention. So during the day he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink, but he says to himself, I'm not fasting anymore. So now he has removed that intention of fasting, so he now has to make up that day and then also perform a kafara. And this is if a person, this applies if there is no reasonable explanation for breaking it. However, it is permissible. So this is if there's no reasonable explanation for it. So say, for example, he did something that he thought broke his fast. Or he did something and he thought it was permissible for him to break his fast, and he had an explanation. It's not a sound explanation, but it's reasonable. So in that case, he has to make up the fast, but he does not pay the kafara. If a person breaks the fast and doesn't have any explanation for why he did it, he just did it, then he has to pay expiation. Or he has an explanation, but it's not reasonable. It's an absurd explanation.
ويباح للضر أو السفر قاصرا يباح الفطر للضرر، يعني لمرض، خوف على نفس، أو سفر قصر أي مباح. كذلك من سافر سفرا قصرا مباحا يباح له الفطر وذلك يقضي. وعمده في النفل دون ضر محرم. عمد الفطر في النفل دون ضرر هذا محرم، ويقضي ذلك اليوم الذي أفطره. وليقضي لا في الغير، لا إذا أفطر في النفل ناسيا أو أفطر لضرر فلا يقضي ذلك اليوم.
Also, it is permissible to break the fast due to some harm that might occur from it, or due to a journey, the length of which allows shortening of prayers, and this means a permissible journey not taken for any prohibited reasons. So if it's going to make him sick, or to fast, and he's sure, and he has proof, or a doctor told him, or whatever it may be, then he doesn't have to fast, or he can break his fast during the day. Or if he's traveling a length which allows him to shorten the prayers, which is the 48 kilometers. But he has to be outside of his city limits before dawn. It can't be that he started his day and now it's 4:30, and he says, okay, I'm going to travel, I'm going to go to Southern California. So now he starts breaking his fast because he's traveling. He has to be out of his city limits before dawn.
مكفرا بصوم شهرين ولاء. أنواع الكفارة: يكفر الإنسان بصوم شهرين ولاء متتابعين. نعم.
The intentional breaking of a recommended fast without fear or of harm is considered prohibited by Imam Malik. Thus, one is obliged to make it up unless one broke it for other valid reasons like forgetfulness or necessity. So if a person broke a nafila fast, intentionally he has to make that up. Because according to Imam Malik, you have to complete that fast once you've begun it. But there's no expiation owed. Unless he had a reason like necessity. He was going to get sick, or he was sick and it was increasing his sickness, so he broke it to prevent more harm. That's the kafara. That's the he's going to, in the next line he's going to talk about it.
وكفرا بصوم شهرين ولاء وعتق مملوك بالإسلام حلا. كفرا بصوم شهرين ولاء، إما أن يكفر الإنسان بصوم شهرين متواليين من غير فطر في أثنائهما، أو عتق مملوك بإسلام حلا، أو يعتق رقبة مؤمنة متحلية بالإسلام، أو يطعم وهو الأفضل. وفضلوا إطعام 60 فقير مدا لمسكين من العيش الكثير. وفضل العلماء إطعام 60 فقيرا عن كل يوم مدا، يطعمه مدا لمسكين من العيش الكثير، أي من غالب القوت في ذلك الوقت.
So the kafara, when he talks about it, the expiation, if a person broke his fast during Ramadan without a valid reason, he has to expiate his breach of the fast by doing one of three things: either fasting 2 consecutive months. So he has to make up that day that he broke, and then also he has to fast 2 consecutive months without interruption. Or by setting a Muslim bondsperson free, that would expiate. That would be, and so if he didn't say he didn't fast the whole month, 30 days, he would have to expiate for each day. So you have to fast 2 months for every day, or free one Muslim bondsperson for every day. However, the Maliki scholars have preferred expiation by feeding 60 poor people, and that would be for every single day. Each poor person given a mud, which is about 0.51 liters of food from the prevalent staple of the locale.
إن شاء الله عند الحج.
And so next week we'll begin the Hajj.